Hey, pushers, Mr. Narimatsu here. Coming with your activity for period four. We're kind of moving on from kind of the politics and the presidents of period four and kind of doing actually almost like a rewind. Talking about a process that was actually going on in 1750. So even going back to the French and Indian War, and that's the movement towards industrial goods and finished goods here in the United States rather than just being a colony of raw materials. Um, so that transition starts in 1750. You can say that transition is part of our economy. It's still happening today. So we have the market revolution. You may have studied this in the past as the industrial revolution in Europe and around the world, and that's what we are going through at the same exact time. A couple of what we call catalysts or things that make things move faster happen, including the War of 1812 and the Embargo Act, which really just forced the United States to be actually a little bit more we call self-sufficient, kind of forced itself to build its own factories, and with its factories, it started transforming its economy. And one thing we've talked about in our Zoom meetings, and hopefully you guys understand, is the importance. And I think I've said this before in recordings of just getting money to move. Right, the faster you can move goods, the faster you can move products, the less likely they're going to spoil, less likely they're going to go bad, and they're going to be of use. And people, look at us with Amazon, right? People want things now. So the market revolution is kind of a lot of different components, and if you Google market revolution, really cool on the top on Google how it just gives you a lot of different things. It was a revolution in transportation. We have railroads somewhat coming up. The version of the railroad isn't exactly what we're thinking of, as you can see right here. But we have the steam engines are happening, and we have now paddle steamboats. Like down here. So right here's some steamboats, and here's one right here. But paddle boats, they're actually able to go upriver, right, with not nearly as much of the human labor that's needed. So just the transportation of items. Definitely, we get factory systems. As you guys all know, if you studied Industrial Revolution, it always starts with clothes, right? Food, it starts with food, then it goes to clothes, and after clothes, it starts going into more mechanical things. So once again, textile mills, and the word textile means clothing, are created here, and you can see how that shows up multiple times, but created in the Northeast. And this is a part of Hamilton's plan. Hamilton sees this happening around him, and these are the markets. These are the factories that he's trying to support during this time. To the frustration of perhaps Thomas Jefferson and the Anti-Federalists, and then the Democratic Republicans, or the Republicans as they know themselves in the during the presidency of Monroe. So, anyways, we're moving on to the Northeast factories, that some of the founding fathers supported. Railroads, like we had talked about, not exactly the railroad we think of today, but moving on, a canal, which is a waterway that was created basically to link up shipping lanes into areas. And, once again, water is very important, right? Water is going to be important for the market revolution for power. Water is going to be very important for transportation of goods, as most of these are happening on ships. Or they're going overland. And remember, we have the Louisiana Purchase, and now we can access the Mississippi and New Orleans, which is super important. And just go back on that, just to remind you, since we have this map here, we got the Louisiana Purchase. Well, what's super important is we had the Ohio River Valley. And honestly, actually, there was this kind of little fight about New Orleans, about if we could use the port or not, multiple times, with the French having issues with it, then later the English. But later we come down, and Andrew Jackson has a fight in New Orleans and is very victorious here. But now we can access this entire waterway. And this waterway in the Ohio River Valley, again, Ohio River Valley, connects the Mississippi, right? So we have basically an ocean that is able to connect us in these states and move to the Gulf of Mexico, and then move out to the entire world and become, what the lecturer is going to call as a international market, right? The triangle trade continues, but it expands on each side. Okay, so want to let you know what a finished good is. It's going to come up multiple times. A finished good is just a product that's been created and done, right? If I'm sitting on a chair, right? This chair is metal. Well, the raw material would be the metal, the aluminum, the tin, the steel, whatever it is, and then the finished good is after it's gone through a factory, it turns into the chair. All right, so I just want to let you know that, because it's going to talk about finished goods, and a lot of students don't maybe understand what a finished good is, and that's what that is. Like I said, I just wanted to draw your attention to textile mills. That's the thing that we come across. And more importantly, that the textile mills is going to require a lot of a raw material called cotton. And this is really going to empower the South. Northeast factories are going to be dependent on Southern cotton, and Southern cotton will become rich, wealthy, and continue to transport their institutions of plantations, cottons, and also slavery as they move west and you have more cotton, right? There's even cotton planters in Texas as they begin moving over further west. We'll talk about that in the Mexican-American War. There's this consistent movement. This consistent empowerment. And also the South is going to become like king. It's going to be known for king cotton. It's going to have so much cotton, or not so much cotton. Its cotton was prized around the entire world. Later, during the Civil War, there's a pivot from England to use Southern American cotton from the South to Egyptian cotton. So it kind of backfires a little bit. But for a good amount of time, the South, is producing cotton not only for the Northeast and for the factories there, but also for England. There are some critics that say, if it wasn't maybe for Northeastern factories, would the institution of slavery have been as strong as it is? So, maybe the Northeast, these individuals are known as abolitionists, really kind of actually enabled slavery to continue, which is an interesting argument. Something that gets created was a cotton gin. Another kind of interesting thing about history, Eli Whitney creates this, and he's actually a Northerner, and his hope not only is to probably to make money off of this item, but it really his hope is to end slavery, because this is the laborious process of picking through the seeds, as your lecturer is going to say, or picking through the cotton and finding the seeds individually, hand by hand. And this machine makes it go much, much faster. And so what happens actually is, because this part of the job isn't needed, and it causes things, cotton become more efficient, making the plantation owner even more powerful, therefore actually increasing slavery. So another thing that backfired, and here it is, I guess, working, but we're moving on. Just wanted to give you a heads up about where we are in this history, right? We've created the Missouri Compromise, as you guys know, as we move westward into the Louisiana Purchase. These areas called territories are called unorganized, right? There's a deal with Spain, and we got Florida. We probably skipped that, but we're skipping a lot of parts of, unfortunately, U.S. history this year to get to the main parts are going to be most likely on test. But I just want to give you a heads up. These are going to be the Southern slave states, and these are going to be the free states up here. And you're starting to see this sectionalism get created. And again, the question is going to be, as they move westward, what's going on? The Trail of Tears and Andrew Jackson, remember, is a focus on Georgian tribes, the 5 civilized tribes, and they've been moved over in this Arkansas territory, specifically in this area right here called Oklahoma. It's also going to talk about investment, and it's going to have another word called land speculation, and we'll talk about that in a second. But investment is, just when you take your extra money instead of just sitting there and you try to make it work. And in this case, we don't have, I don't know if they have a functioning stock market as we know it as a stock market, but there's definitely banks that are investing into all types of individuals, into factories, into, obviously, at certain levels, a bank is just investment by giving a loan, right? You're trusting that person that they're going to be successful enough to pay back that money that they're going to borrow, whether it be to buy the factory or get a loan to pay the individuals that you're paying in the factory. So, we like to think of it as stock market today. I don't think we have something like that, but, through banks and through, wealthy individuals who are making contracts, individual contracts as if they are the bank, there are these things called investments that are happening. And investment is where you don't necessarily run the company, but you're putting money into it in the hope that if it's profitable, you'll make some money back, which is kind of what's true of the stock as well. One last thing it's going to talk about is land speculation. As you kind of saw, and I'll kind of actually go back to this one, there's all this unorganized territory, and there's a lot of people that believe this is going to be the next Ohio River Valley, right? And it's so easy to grow things, and sometimes the winter is kind of bad, and there's sometimes, it's not so good, but hey, it has access to water. So there's a lot of what we call land speculation. Speculation, guys, when you speculate, when you're talking about economics, that means you're trying to guess at something. Obviously, you're trying to guess at being usually profitable. So in this case, they're trying to figure out if the land's going to be profitable. And what people were doing is they would buy it from the government, hold on to it, and then when somebody else would want to come over, like a farmer or a family, to settle on this land, they would actually pay for more of it, right? So there's a lot of what we call land speculation going on this time, and it's going to cause some problems because Sometimes they're going to buy a lot of money, buy a lot of land with money inside an area, thinking it's worth something, but they don't. It's like people from New York and banks from New York. They don't actually go there, and then they go there and realize, it's in the middle of the desert. It snows all the time. There's no access to water anywhere. And so it's just land speculation. I guarantee there's probably talks about gold in some areas, and so they're trying to buy areas thinking it's gold, and then there was no gold and different things like that. So just wanted to give you a heads up. It's going to talk about land speculation. Like she, as a lecturer, just kind of says it and just moves on. But I thought that would be something that you want to know. All right, guys. So this activity really focused again about the transformation. You're going to have another activity, the next assignment, that's going to be about the market revolution effects as well. But this is just kind of identifying the causes and what is the market revolution. And it's as your lecturer says, kind of like a three-pronged approach, right? There's kind of multiple levels to it: transportation, communication, international markets, and a change in our labor force. We're going from individual people just doing their own thing at their own piece of property, usually a farm, to people reporting to a, 7 to 12 o'clock job, because the hours back then were horrible, and actually literally living on your job, but you're getting paid a wage now. You're being paid per hour or per day or per item. That was something uniquely different. Most of the time, you would just hang out at your own place and do your own thing, and kind of that's what Thomas Jefferson saw. But I don't think Thomas Jefferson really appreciated the power of the factories that are coming out of the Northeast. And again, we'll just get blown up because out of pure desperation of the War of 1812 and the Embargo Act, they can't get any of their finished goods. They can't get T-shirts. They can't get these furnitures. They can't get the items that they want. So they're going to have to start creating them there in the United States. All right, guys, take care. Later, pushers.